And oh boy, where'd that go? Where did that go? You still there,
Yeah,
Leo?
I'm here. I'm here with bells and whistles.
Yeah, well, I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. Oh, deal doctor. Medicine, pros and cons. Share on a group. Share in group share. Come on, roll down or scroll down. Come on. And the next thing I say is go live, right? Go live. Co-panelists. Webinar. Hey, we might actually be able to go live today on time.
At 1, it's good.
Yeah. No, I can't see you though. I don't know where you went. Didn't they already launch me? I hate this. I wish we could have it up and running so we could see it and then go live.
Yeah,
Can you see me at all?
I can see you perfectly.
2 minutes. Give me-
I don't like what I'm looking at, but I see you.
Well, you know what? My brother and I, who were born 4 years apart on the same day, said, you know, it ain't so pretty as what it used to look like when we were young, when we look in the mirror, but we're still looking in the mirror. Whether we like it or not.
Fine, distinguished man.
Why am I not able to see you?
I do like your Harry Carey glasses, though, when you wear those. You have a darker ones, don't you?
I'm sorry, say again?
You have darker glasses. I like those ones too. Don't you have like full black glasses?
No, those were actually blue blocker glasses.
Oh, okay.
And I thought they were like readers until Dom looked through them and he went, "You're an idiot," or something along that line. You know, at my age, you can't tell readers from, you know, not readers. So,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm going to try to start this.
Do it. Sure you can hear me okay?
What?
Don't do that.
Sorry. All right, here we go. I'm going to make it go live. See if we do it right. Got it.
I think we're live. Hi, Don.
Hey, Leo. Welcome to the Deal Doctor live stream. It is Monday, right at 1 o'clock sharp. Yay.
Nice.
So, I want to introduce Leo. Leo has rejoined our broker support team. But Leo, if you could give a little bit of background on your history with 5-Star and what your responsibilities are in your new role here, that might be a great start.
So for those of you who are just meeting me, my name is Leo Olson. I've been in real estate for 23 years, and 18 of those years have been with 5-Star. And during my time at 5-Star, I have been an agent. I've ran a very small team. I have mentored over 100 agents through my time here. I had a short run, probably about 4 or 5 years, where I was on staff doing what is called broker support now. And then I took a couple of years off from to hang out with my daughters through their high school years. And then I've been invited back to rejoin 5-Star on staff in the broker support team. And so I'll be making calls and I'm around, and that's kind of like a short Reader's Digest of my time here at 5-Star.
Great. Thanks, Leo, and welcome back. It's a good ad. I appreciate it. You and I worked together before on things like, well, you were the other deal doctor before Eric joined us. And then you took over the education after we had started along the education route. So you've got a lot of background, a lot of history with 5-Star and obviously with real estate. So today's topic is what happens when agents recommend, let's say an inspector, for example, a vendor out there, whether it's an inspector or a septic system company or a builder or whatever. So what happens when that happens, Leo?
Everything goes perfectly. Well, I'll tell you this. Let me throw this out there. When the pandemic kind of messed this up, but I had in my database, I had something called the Team 100. And my idea was that I would have the ability to refer to my clients everything from inspector, drywall, painter, plumber, anything I could think of. And I'd make this list and I'd give it to them. And the idea with this was that I would be a resource for my clients. So after they had the sale, which was great because they'd call me, hey, Leo, do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Kind of natural touches and sustaining that long-term relationship. However, there is some cautions to doing that. And that's what our topic was today. So if I were to create that list again, what advice would you give me, Don, coming out of the gate?
First of all, we've had this conversation with Gail Anderson many times about whether or not agents have the right to make recommendations and or to advise against someone. And it's a very fine line to tread. You have to be very careful that you're not disparaging unfairly someone. When we get into issues of defamation, if you make a defamatory statement, that's one that is not true or cannot be supported, you could be faced with a lawsuit. So if there's a particular inspector who is largely referred to as the deal killer, you have to be really careful about engaging in that sort of behavior and those sorts of characterizations. On the other hand, if you have personal knowledge, having been involved in transactions where that person has killed deals, more than one, you do have some right to allow your clients to know that, but you have to be really, really careful about it. Now, the same holds true if you have really good experience with certain inspection companies or vendors of any kind, lenders, title companies, any of those sort of folks. If you have really good experience, you do have a right to share that information with your clients. Again, you have to be a little bit careful. So when you talk about your list of 100, Leo, why did you create that list of 100? What was it, a question of giving them options? And if so, was that a matter of liability?
It was a matter of just making myself valuable after the sale. I wanted, if anyone had a question, like there are like primary referrals that happen during a transaction. You have your lenders, your inspectors, title, well and septic and different stuff like that. So I had those people on call, but I wanted to, it was really for business to go, if they had any need for their house, I could be a resource, which prolongs kind of that relationship where I'm continuing to give them value well after a closing. So it was a business strategy for retention of these clients. That was the main goal. However, sometimes it didn't go so well because when I would refer, like, here's an example. I referred a contractor to someone and I had good interactions. I didn't actually use this contractor, but good rapport, and thought it was, from my estimation, it was great. And it did not go well. The contractor, it just didn't go well. And now I'm saddled with that poor referral. And so what I have adapted that to do is I will refer more than one person. I think this is a good protection to have in any kind of field. And this was before the creation of Angie's List and stuff like that, or Thumbtack, or there's different, sites out there that do referrals and stuff. But the main goal is just to be more valuable for anything that, a homeowner that I worked with had. So that was the goal, but I ran into good referrals and bad referrals. And so,
yeah, and we've all been there. I like the idea that agents can provide information and be a resource for their clients. And yes, sometimes it's going to happen that you're going to get a clunker. You're going to get two people, a vendor and a client who just don't work together well for whatever reason. And you mitigate that bad press that you might get by offering another option. You also mitigate the liability that you and 5-Star may face if that goes really, really badly and it ends up in a lawsuit. At least you can show that you've offered other options out there to them. And that's particularly important with inspectors. When they say to you, well, who do you think you should use as an inspector, or we should use as an inspector? I have one company that I use most often, and there are other companies that I have used successfully. So here's the one that I've had great success with, but here's a couple of other options for you. So that's kind of how I approach it. I do like to have this one particular company that I use involved because, again, I've had really, really good, I've never had a clunker with this particular inspection company. So, but it could happen. It's going to happen at some point. So I give them a couple of options purely so that if there is a bad result or a bad outcome, that they will look at it, well, we had a couple of other options too. I know of one situation, we sometimes tell war stories. I know of one situation where it turned out really bad, and an agent recommended an inspection company who did not inspect the fireplace or the chimney furnace. I'm sorry, the chimney going out of the fireplace in the family room. Well, that chimney caught fire and resulted in death. And that agent got sued along with the inspector, even though there was never any indication that there was going to be a fireplace chimney inspection done on that property. Everybody got sued in that line. So again, there is liability out there. It can go badly. So giving them options, a list, as you say, your 100, is a really good plan, not only as a resource customer service thing, but also to limit liability.
so I have another question for you. So I have a buyer presentation. When I meet with clients, I'll give them some sort of paper. Let's bring up lenders, for example. So if they don't have a lender relationship already, I will refer 3 different lenders to them, and it's in my agreement. And one's a bank, Big Lake Mortgage, which would be like a broker. And then I have a credit union contact. And so I give 3 options: a bank, a broker, and a credit union. Is there any problem with that? Do you see any problems with that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Except one. When we get involved with lenders who we may have an affiliation with, like Big Lake Mortgage is affiliated with 5-Star, we have to disclose that on the affiliated business arrangement disclosure form. That's an absolute must. Same thing with, I know that some agents carry a mortgage license and do mortgages for a mortgage company. They also have to disclose that information on an affiliated business disclosure arrangement form. Same thing with title companies that we may use or provide services for if they are part of a joint venture, part ownership, collect 5 chits and get a free lunch. All of those kinds of things have to be disclosed on the affiliated business disclosure form. If you are receiving, you or your broker are receiving any benefit from those recommendations that you are giving for any vendor at all.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if we're, we'll obviously refer Star Title, Big Lake Lending, and the property and casualty insurance thing, that needs to be on an affiliated disclosure at some point as you go through, right?
Right, if they use it. I mean, if they say, hey, I'm not going to use Star Title or Big Lake Mortgage or Big Lake Insurance, then it's not necessary. But if they do, you have to disclose. And this gets into a question of, do they have to sign it? Does the client have to sign that you have disclosed this to them on the affiliated business disclosure form? What if they refuse? What happens, Leo, if they refuse?
Nothing.
Right, because we can't force them to sign it. But I would encourage agents that if you run into that situation, that you send them an email with that document attached and say, hey, here's the affiliated business disclosure arrangement, a business arrangement disclosure attached. It shows that we, the broker, have an affiliation with Star Title, Big Lake Mortgage, Big Lake Insurance, American Home Shield, whatever it might be. And we have shared this with you as a disclosure, and you've opted to not sign it. That way you have a paper trail that says we disclosed it. They just didn't acknowledge that we disclosed it.
So I hear you. And when it comes to the time of disclosure and writing contracts and stuff, how I would use this is I would bring that out and just go, if we use these companies, I need to know that my broker has a relationship with them. And that should take care of that. That seems like an easy kind of presentation to get. And if we don't use them, it's fine. But if you have it signed anyway, it's fine too. Then you're covered, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if they don't sign it, I would get some sort of paper trail in place that you gave them the information. They elected not to sign it. Okay, that's fair enough. We can't force them to sign it. But it really is a very easy presentation, because I mean, I've done it, 100 times or more. I mean, it's simple. This is a company with which 5-Star has a relationship. Do you have any questions? And they're like, are we going to pay more for title insurance or whatever it might be? And you explain, no, those are regulated by the state of Michigan Insurance Board and so on. And, for me, it's really a way that I can control the conversation, control the transaction as it moves forward, and keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening. And generally, I never run into any objection about signing that.
Don, what's your language when you explain those 3 affiliated businesses? What advantage, what's the phraseology you use when talking with people?
Well, when you say advantage, help me understand what you're asking me.
Okay, let me, this is usually what I say. I'll say, we can, Star Title, for example. You can use any title company. We have an affiliated company with Star Title. The cost is all the same across the board because they're regulated, the title insurance regulated by the state of Michigan, those costs. Right. I go, but there is some ease of business that if I need a favor or something like that, I have kind of like a good title company in my pocket that I can work something out. So it doesn't cost you anymore, but it is kind of an ease of business thing. And if that's an option you'd like to go through, we can do that.
Absolutely perfect. And that's what I do too. I say, it really allows me to keep control of the transaction because I know the people in place. I know the people that are working on the transaction and the process. and I can reach out to them and talk to them personally about what's happening. And 9 times out of 10, they go fine. Is there that 1 out of 10 or less that say, I want to work with a different company, I want to work with a different inspector, whatever it might be? Absolutely. And if you respect that and say, okay, no problem, let's go with that one.
And cash sales, seller dictates title, right?
Well, that depends.
Usually, usually,
If it is not indicated, the argument is that the person who pays for the policy gets to dictate where it goes. That's not exactly what the law says, or I should say, case law as it regards RESPA and title companies. If it is stipulated in the purchase agreement that the buyer wants their title insurance to be from a specific title company, then they have the right to enforce the contract. So that's a big question. That in and of itself is a live stream and more right there.
yeah. And if the seller's paying closing costs, then that's another variable in that. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
too, because it's who's bringing the money. But I think the lesson is that write it in the purchase agreement so you have clarification about how this thing is going to eventually get to a closing, and do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The common practice out there, the common practice is to split the title policies when there's a mortgage involved. There's a lot of misunderstanding. We've had Eileen from Star Title on in a number of live streams before. But as you say, in a cash sale, there's only one title policy involved, and that is the seller's policy, because the buyer is not insuring to a mortgage to the mortgage company that they have a right to put a lien on the property. That mortgage policy doesn't exist in a cash sale.
Right.
When it does, generally speaking, they split, and the seller gets to choose whatever one they want. Buyer gets to choose whatever one the buyer wants. That's not necessarily how it has to go. If the buyer or seller want the title insurance to be done by one party, they can stipulate that in the purchase agreement.
I have another question for you. Sometimes I have dealt with, and we'll take it away from title, but we'll do inspectors, for example, or even lenders. Sometimes I have clients that they go, I don't care. What do you say? What do you choose? I don't know inspectors. I'm not going to do all this research. Just pick one. And I remember some protective language in, I think it was in the Kalamazoo buy sell, but I could be mistaken. That it like indemnifies you if you let the agent choose this stuff. What are some things I could be aware of about that?
Well,
When
there
I
are
go,
some.
whatever you want, Leo, we're going to go with you. Just make it happen. And you're like, okay, I'm deciding everything now.
Yeah. And that's a kind of a dangerous position to be put in, but they do it every time. We've all been there. If we've been in this business like 10 minutes, it's already happened. And there is one of the reasons that I like the company that I prefer to recommend.
I know which company it is.
Is that they indemnify us. They indemnify the agents. And I like that part about it. And they've always done a great job. I think that when it comes to any sort of indemnification, particularly this kind of indemnification, it would be wise to get something in writing from them to say, Leo, we're going to follow whatever directives you give us along the way. We're going to do whatever you tell us to do as far as inspectors and title insurance and all of that stuff. It's best if you can get that in writing, because if it ever comes back, you want some sort of proof that you were able to, that they gave you the go-ahead to do those things.
So is there any language like in the purchase agreement? Can you remember that? Do you know what I'm referencing?
I don't actually, but we can
I'll try to look for it.
Yeah, and we can post a little thing here later on, in the thread on this, if we find out. I don't recall any language. The hold harmless actually is a very strong document that should be in absolutely every closing that we have for 5-star in every single market, and every single title company that we use or an agent uses. And that essentially indemnifies 5-star and the agent from anything to do with the transaction throughout the course of the transaction. So I strongly urge that if you're using any other title company but Star, it would behoove you and 5-Star to make sure that hold harmless is used for the closing.
Yeah. So one takeaway, what do you think about this takeaway from this deal, doctor, is that if I'm going to refer, I always do like the rule of 3. If I can have 3 people, I'm always referring people and giving them the choice. Tracy Johnson always says, I give advice, you give direction. And I kind of like that phrase. Would that be a good practice for me or anyone to go when someone's asking for a referral, try to get 3 and let them make a choice?
I love 3. I think it's a great thing. And Tracy's absolutely right. It's really important that agents remember that we give advice, we take direction. We are not here to say, oh, you need to do this. You need to use this title company, or you need to use this inspector. Avoid putting yourself in the position of liability where we're essentially pinning a target on our backs when we put ourselves in a position of saying, well, I know best, this is the inspector we're going to use. That's much different than saying, here are 3 options. I happen to prefer this one over the others, but the choice is yours.
Okay.
And that's okay to do as long as we have some experiential basis for doing that.
Right. And then for the clients who are like, handle it, Don, just whatever you've been in this a long time, you know who to use. We'll just go with your guy. We want to get some kind of statement or language to go, all right, you're giving me the reins, but you're not going to hold me liable if it goes sideways. Otherwise, you have a choice, right? You got to protect yourself.
Yeah.
By referring multiples or getting some statement in writing saying that, all right, you're giving me a lot of, leeway here. But I got to cover my backside, so to speak. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know that I would put it in exactly those words, but I would probably send them an email and say, just to reiterate, I made 3 recommendations to you, or I may offer 3 options to you for an inspector, for example, and you feel confident in my recommendation to go with ABC Inspections. I hope there's not an ABC Inspections out there, but anyway, ABC Inspections is the one that you feel confident to move forward with. Am I correct? Is that correct? And yes, fine. Then you have some protection in the event they come back and say, hey, we used ABC Inspections and had a horrible experience.
Yeah.
So
it's not a fun conversation to have if it goes sideways, but I understand you're kind of covering your bases to go, all right.
Yeah. So if you have questions, I hope that helps. Any closing thoughts, Leo?
Nope. That's good. I think I covered some of my questions.
Again, thank you all for joining. If you have questions or comments that we can answer down in the comment section on this thread, please add them. We'll respond to them throughout the day and week as you see this. Again, thanks for joining. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks, Don.